July 18th, 64 AD, Rome is burning. The fire started in the shops near the Circus Maximus. Within hours, it was out of control. Flames consuming entire neighborhoods. People fleeing with whatever they could carry. The fire burned for 6 days. By the time it stopped, 2/3 of Rome was destroyed. Hundreds of thousands were homeless. And the emperor, Nero, he was 50 miles away at his villa. When he heard about the fire, he rushed back to Rome. But when he arrived, instead of fighting the fire, he did something strange. He went to his palace, climbed to the top, and according to witnesses, began singing, performing about the fall of Troy, while Rome burned below him. The people of Rome started asking questions. Did Nero start this fire himself, so he could rebuild Rome in his own image? This is the story of Emperor Nero, the tyrant who burned Rome, and then blamed it on a new religious group that no one had heard of, the Christians. Nero became emperor of Rome at age 16, in the year 54 AD. He was young, inexperienced, but surrounded by capable advisors. Seneca, the philosopher, and Burrus, the military commander, guided the young emperor through his early years. For the first 5 years, Rome prospered. The Senate approved of his rule. The people respected him. But as Nero grew older, his priorities changed. By age 22, he became more interested in the arts than in governing. He wanted public theaters. This was unusual for a Roman emperor. The elite class considered public performance undignified for someone of his station. But Nero pursued his artistic interests regardless of criticism. As he spent less time governing and more time performing, his relationships with advisors and family members became strained. Ancient historians note that his inner circle grew smaller over time. Many who had been close to him in his early years were no longer present by his mid-20s. Whether through natural causes, political exile, or other circumstances, Nero increasingly surrounded himself only with those who supported his decisions unconditionally. By age 26, there was no one left who could challenge him. No one to question his judgment. No one to say, perhaps this isn't wise. And in July of 64 AD, Rome faced a crisis that would define his reign. A fire that would change everything. July 18th, 64 AD, the fire started just after midnight. It began in shops selling flammable goods, oil-dot fabric, wood. The flames spread fast. Rome was packed tight, narrow streets, wooden buildings. Once the fire started, there was no stopping it. For 6 days, it burned. People tried to flee, but the fire kept jumping ahead of them. Entire neighborhoods were consumed in minutes. By the time it finally stopped, 3 of Rome's 14 districts were completely destroyed. 7 more were damaged, only 4 were untouched. Hundreds of thousands of Romans were homeless. The city was devastated. Nero opened public buildings to shelter the refugees. He organized food supplies. On the surface, he looked like he was helping, but rumors started spreading. People said they'd seen Nero's soldiers preventing firefighters from putting out the flames, that they'd seen men throwing torches into buildings that weren't yet burning. People said Nero had started the fire deliberately, so he could clear space for his dream project. The Domus Aurea, the Golden House, a massive palace complex that would cover 300 acres of central Rome, with artificial lakes, gardens, a 100-foot statue of himself. Whether Nero actually started the fire, we'll never know for certain. Ancient historians disagree, but the Roman people believed he did. And belief is what matters in politics. Nero needed someone to blame. Fast. Before the people turned on him completely, he chose the Christians. In 64 AD, Christianity was new. Most Romans had never heard of it. Christians were a small group, mostly poor. They didn't worship the Roman gods. They refused to participate in emperor worship. They seemed secretive, strange, perfect scapegoats. Nero announced that Christians had started the fire, that they were enemies of Rome, that they wanted to destroy the empire. He ordered mass arrests. Anyone suspected of being Christian was rounded up. What happened next was brutal. Nero turned their executions into entertainment. Some were covered in animal skins and torn apart by dogs. Others were crucified. Some were burned alive. At night, to light Nero's gardens. Tacitus, the Roman historian, wrote about it. He said even people who hated Christians felt sorry for them, because everyone knew they hadn't started the fire. They were being killed not for what they'd done, but because Nero needed someone to blame. It didn't work. The Roman people weren't fooled. They knew Nero was responsible, and every Christian he killed made him look more guilty. The Senate started to turn against him. The military was restless. The people of Rome wanted him gone. But Nero kept performing, kept building his golden palace, kept believing he was loved. By 68 AD, revolts were breaking out across the empire. Governors were declaring independence. The Praetorian Guard was ready to switch sides. Nero's rule was collapsing, and he still couldn't see it. June 68 AD, 4 years after the fire, the Senate declared Nero an enemy of the state, ordered his arrest and execution. Nero was in his palace when he heard the news. He panicked, tried to flee Rome, but his guards abandoned him. His servants left, he had no one. He ran to a villa outside the city, hid in a servant's quarters, and there he realized it was over. Roman soldiers were coming to arrest him. He'd be dragged through the streets, executed publicly, humiliated. He couldn't face it. Nero ordered his secretary to help him commit suicide. But even at the end, he hesitated. He couldn't do it. According to historians, his last words were, "What an artist dies in me. Not, what have I done to my people? Not, I'm sorry for the Christians I killed. What an artist dies in me." He died believing he was a misunderstood genius, a performer whose talents Rome had never appreciated. He was 30 years old. He'd been emperor for 14 years. Nero's body was cremated. His palace was torn down. The Senate ordered his name erased from public records. Rome wanted to forget he'd ever existed, but they couldn't forget what he'd done. The fire, the Christians. The murders Nero became a warning about what happens when you give unlimited power to someone who cares more about their own image than the people they rule. Emperor Nero started with potential, good advisors, a prosperous empire. But absolute power revealed his true nature: the narcissism, the cruelty, the complete inability to see beyond himself. He burned Rome. Whether deliberately or through negligence, the result was the same. 2/3 of the city destroyed, and instead of taking responsibility, he blamed innocent people, killed them in the most brutal ways imaginable, turned their deaths into entertainment, all to protect his own reputation. This is what happens when rulers believe they're more important than the people they govern. When they see themselves as artists, philosophers, geniuses, not as servants of their people. Nero died believing he was misunderstood. History remembers him as one of Rome's worst tyrants. Sometimes what you believe about yourself matters less than what you actually did. Power reveals, and sometimes what it reveals is terrifying. Subscribe to see what happens when emperors burn cities.